Can you say a little bit about your firm and its activities?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have two companies really. So there's Bondit Media Capital, which is a financing company, and then Buffalo 8 Productions, which is a production company. They're both owned and operated by the same founders, Luke Taylor and Matthew Helderman. Bondit is a senior debt financier. So we are financing single picture film and television projects that have to be secured by collateral. So most of the time that's like sales receivables with distributors. So, minimum guarantees, negative pickups, domestic backstops, international pre-sales. We do tax credit lending as well. Really anything with a firm value floor is something that we would take a look at. Kind of over the past year or so, we've been less and less involved in like lending against projections and lending against like unsold estimates from a sales company. Just kind of given what we've seen foreign buyers do during COVID. We've had a couple of foreign buyers renege on MGs or try and discuss different payment schedules and everything. So we have largely been focusing on fully collateralized loans. And so that's on the bonded side. We also do select corporate lending against incoming receivables. But I'd say probably 75% of our portfolio is active film and television productions. And then on the production side, so Buffalo 8 is a full service production company with various divisions depending on what stage of production you're in. So we have early stages development. We have a physical production services division located down in New Mexico. We have a post-production division located up in Hollywood. And then we have a distribution division as well for already completed films. So, really kind of across the board, our goal is to be, one-stop shop type solution for any project where we have financing, we have, development, we have production services, we have post-production.
Is it a US-based company, I imagine, or do you provide also service for other countries like a tax credit service, or is it only for US?
Yeah, so I'd say most of the projects we work with are US-based, but we're totally flexible with working with international productions. We had a film that wrapped a couple of weeks ago, or it was probably a month ago at this point, that was shot in Mexico. We had a film that was shot in Finland in 2020. We've had some projects shoot in Puerto Rico and really kind of spread across the world. So yeah, we're totally flexible with working with international productions. There might just be a little bit more complexity in the closing process, but totally comfortable working within different countries. And then from a tax credit perspective, we are comfortable financing foreign tax credits. It's just a little bit of a different structure usually, and need to make sure that the program is well established, certain kind of standard credit checks. If there's a very new program, then it's unlikely that we'll be able to, approve lending against it, but it's something we would still take a look at.
Mm-hmm. What kind of film you mostly invest in? Is it, are you invest mostly in indie films or Hollywood films? So just if you can say a little bit about that.
Yeah, I would say our sweet spot is really the sub $10 million range. That is kind of a niche within the industry that banks largely stray away from, mostly because the budgets can't really support completion bonds. And we don't require a completion bond in order to trigger our financing. So we effectively self-bond projects just because Matt and Luke, who founded the company, were producers, and so that we have production expertise. We have the service divisions with Buffalo 8. So, sometimes a lot of Bondit projects that we finance, we also do the post-production on, and that provides a little bit more visibility and control into the project that makes us feel comfortable financing without a completion bond. So I'd say, we work with most films that fall in that sub $10 million range, are more on the independent side. But still have big name talent attracted. We finance a lot of like Bruce Willis action movies. We just closed a deal that's a Bruce Willis, John Travolta film that's shooting in Hawaii. There's another project with J.K. Simmons that's shooting in Louisiana.
I realized that you also offer kind of internship program. Can you say more about what kind of program it is, the internship?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've really done a great job building out the internship program, and usually we tailor kind of the internship program to the interns and what their specific interests are. Just because we're a diverse company with a lot of different needs. We have specifically focusing on the financing side. We can have creative interns, we can have marketing interns, graphic design interns. So we really tailor our internship to, whatever skill set and interest that intern has. And there's always the option to kind of expand out of whatever their initial focus is. We do internships for the summer, fall, and spring. The past year has been remote just because of COVID, which has been a little bit more challenging, but we're hoping to get interns back in the office with the vaccine being rolled out and everything. So we take on about 10 to 12 for each period, I guess you could call it, for, summer, fall, and spring. And does that answer your question? You want me to go in depth a little bit more?
Yes. And you also offer different kind of grants, especially diversity grant program. What is this grant is about, and what is the criteria for somebody if you want to apply?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is related to Screencraft. So we've partnered with Screencraft a number of times for their grant fund. So it's early stage screenplays all the way up to films that are looking for completion financing, and kind of through partnering with them over the years, we've created a kind of a separate grant program that is focused on diverse projects and diverse storytelling. So people of color, marginalized voices are encouraged to apply to that, and that's kind of the restriction for applying and the reviewing criteria is the project written or created by a person of color from a marginalized community. So the story itself doesn't necessarily have to be focused on those topics. It just has to be the creator or the creative team has to be from a diverse group.
Mm-hmm. As you mentioned, also you are also support films for distribution. How do you pick movies for distribution? Do you work only with established filmmakers, or is it also for independent filmmakers?
It's also for independent filmmakers. We've been, growing and expanding our title. It's a relatively new division, actually. And we recently hired Nikki Steer Justice, who worked at Good Deed for a number of years. And now she joined our team back in 2020. And actually might have been 2019, late 2019. Not entirely sure. But anyways, so yeah, we've been revamping that division, and acquiring a lot of titles. It can be established filmmakers, or it can be a feature film debut. Kind of the goal of the distribution division is we have kind of two different approaches to it. We have a number of output deals with different streamers and VOD platforms that we introduce projects to when a title comes to us. So we have an output deal with like Tubi Television, for example, and Pluto TV. And then, so that's kind of one strategy, is just focusing on placing these films on these different digital distribution channels. And then we also have more of a focused release strategy. So like a film that hasn't been exploited yet, we can kind of come on board and advise in terms of, kind of helping out with festival planning and release strategy and raising P&A to garner attention for the film and that sort of thing. So there's really kind of two different avenues that we take a look at on the distribution side.
Can you say a little bit also about the grants? Because according to your website, you also offer different sorts of grants. How does this work?
Yeah, so this is again through the partner Screencraft. So it's a $30,000 grant, and it's just an application for that, and it can either be just a script, or it could be a film that's looking for completion funding. It doesn't necessarily have to be limited to feature film either. It could be a TV pilot. It could be a docuseries, or not docuseries, a documentary. And yeah, so kind of because Bondit is a senior secured financier, we have pretty strict requirements for which projects we can fund. So the grant program kind of offers a separate route to access funding just through kind of the grant competition, and we partner with Screencraft on it to have them help review the projects and determine a winner for receiving that $30,000. And it tends to be projects that are a little bit smaller than the ones that we finance on the Bondit side as well. So just another option for filmmakers to help get their project made.
Okay, so you basically also enter into film production as a kind of co-producer or executive, or you just only provide financing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we join projects as executive producers, either on the Bondit side or the Buffalo 8 side. If a project is a little bit earlier stages, they don't have the collateral fully set up for us to lend against, then we would come on board from an executive producing standpoint on the Buffalo 8 side, which would be a little bit more of the early stage development, figuring out the finance plan, building a budget and a schedule and a deck, and then going out and actually shopping the project. And then on the Bondit side, it's a little bit more based on what exactly is the collateral that we're lending against and how much can we fund to production based off of that. And then assuming that we can either finance the whole budget, or we can finance part of the budget and the rest of the financing that's required in order to meet the budget is in place, then from there, it's making sure that we feel confident that the production is going to get complete on time, on schedule, on budget, without really any sort of significant issues or delays. So that's kind of the executive producing on the Bondit side, is from a more practical production standpoint. And then the executive producing on the Buffalo 8 side is a little bit earlier stages, kind of helping build out those projects.
And how you usually select a project for such kind of work collaboration? Is it more in relationship to the script, or are you looking more for a film with stars attached?
Yeah, so on the Bondit side, the evaluation more comes down to has the project sold to a distributor? Is there a tax credit we can lend against? Is there an executed sale we can lend against? So it's not as much evaluating the creative aspects of the project. Obviously, a really strong producer, a really strong cast helps. It's more of an indicator for us that the production team is high quality and is going to be able to get the job done. But it's not really the main thing that we're evaluating. We're evaluating the collateral. And then on the Buffalo 8 side, we don't have a genre mandate. We try to look for mostly commercial projects, but we're fairly flexible on that front, just because through the Bondit side, through developing relationships, over time, we feel like we have good relationships with buyers that are looking for all different types of material. So if a project that is really strong, that's a drama, comes to us, it would just be a matter of figuring out, who are the right parties that are looking at dramas right now, and is there a place that we think we can get this project set up with? So yeah.
Mm. And my last question is about the impact of COVID on your company. I wonder if you can say a little bit about what was the impact and how do you see the post-COVID cinema?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good question. So initially, when COVID hit back in March, it did have a pretty big impact for about 2 to 3 months, especially both on Bondit and Buffalo 8. For Buffalo 8, the early stage development projects, we didn't slow down on those because a lot of people were looking to develop projects and have them ready to go for when everything kind of COVID related, when productions were allowed to start again. And so on the Bondit side, production financing was pretty much non-existent for 3 months. And so we kind of shifted our strategy to focusing a little bit on more corporate deals. We were financing receivables for films that had already been completed and delivered. And then once production was allowed to restart, our underwriting team was able to get comfortable with the various COVID restrictions that were put in place, union approvals, following all the state guidelines and the COVID plans that had been kind of approved throughout the industry. And so since then, that was like early July, we've been really busy because, we had previously operated in a space that banks did not have a huge presence, but banks were completely removed because they couldn't have any sort of production financing because of COVID. It was just a risk that they can't take because they're, they have very clear restrictions and limitations, and they need a completion bond. And most bond companies were not comfortable putting up completion bonds when there was COVID. So it actually gave us a really big opportunity to, be an active production financier. And as long as we were able to get comfortable with the COVID risk, we were able to capitalize on that opportunity. So since, July of last year, we've probably financed around like 30 to 40 productions. So we've been very busy and really active, and have seen, COVID not have a huge impact on us. We had a couple productions that shut down, but we were able to remount them, and, for the most part, did not really have many hiccups throughout. So it really had it was an impact that we had to navigate and figure out how to adapt. And, we were able to, be a solution for a lot of people that were looking to go back into production once productions were allowed to start. And yeah, in terms of kind of the future outlook, it'll be interesting to see what happens in the production space, just because, there's banks are still pretty hesitant to get back into production financing. So we're still staying really busy. And a lot of the productions now, it's just for us, there's a lot less risk because most people are getting vaccinated. COVID numbers are pretty low right now in the US. So we've kind of been operating in a similar fashion, but just the kind of COVID underwriting is, it's just a little bit easier to get comfortable with that risk now that has all happened.